pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we got a bunch of things on the slate tonight. I signed the PR 20-17 for Ellen Jameson. We have a World War II memorial donation of $25.
Motion to accept?
Second, I'd like to thank Wendy Cook of Plum Island again for a generous donation to the World War II memorial. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have a request for public property use special permits. American Diabetes Association, North Shore Tour de Cure, Sunday, May 17th, 2020, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Use of roads and a rest stop at the Upper Green.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion.
Are they here?
Would you like to speak to the event? If
Sure.
if you'd like to come up to the microphone, it's a good chance to promote.
The old guys like me. My name's Bob Cook. I live in Newburyport. I'm a member of the executive committee that runs the ADA North Shore Tour de Cure. We have a 64-mile route. We start and stop in Topsfield Fairgrounds. Have a 64-mile route that comes up from Georgetown. I guess that's South Street to Main Street through Byfield, and then down to Turkey Hill Road and take a left on Turkey Hill. I guess that's when we go into West Newbury. But looking at the road, I can't quite tell whether that's in Newbury or West Newbury.
It's complicated right there.
It's complicated. And then the 100-mile loop comes through West Newbury, and we meet in Newburyport, and then the first rest stop is on the Upper Green. And then we go down 1A. Raising funds for the American Diabetes Association. Like you said, was it March 17th, if I remember? May 17th.
Yep.
That's about the extent of it. We hope not to have any bridge closings this year, which I think happened to us 2 years ago.
I think we are as well.
You don't have any, like, paint that you're gonna use on this roads or anything, right? Or chalk?
They have, we don't have to. We can use signs, or a lot of times they use chalk on the roads instead of paint. But that can
How do we
be,
feel about chalk?
I have no problem. It washes off.
Yeah, chalk is fine.
Yeah, chalk is fine.
chalk. We can use chalk.
Thank
That's
you.
fine.
Okay.
And if people would like to sign up for their ride, what's the easiest way to reach you guys?
The Tour de Cure just Google Tour de Cure, North Shore Tour de Cure.
Okay, perfect. Good luck with your event.
And you noticed the fire department detail with the ambulance, right? That's in here, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you noticed that, right? Well, they're aware of it because it went through right on.
Yeah, everything's in order.
Good. Don't worry about it.
All right.
Don't worry about
As
it.
long
Don't
as it
worry
went
about
through.
You guys are all set. Everything's in order.
Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good night. Good luck
Thank
with your
you.
event.
Good night.
Okay, we have a,
Vote?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. Good catch, Alan. We have a notice of intent to sell Chapter 61B property, 6 Marsh Meadow Lane, Byfield, Mass.
I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay?
Now, do we just need the first motion? Or you want me to read the
If you just
preamble?
read and then
All right.
motion.
The notice of intent to sell, Chapter 61B property, 6 Marsh Meadow Lane, Byfield, Assessors Map R22, Lot 10F, was received January 27th, 2020. With supplements received February 24th, 2020, by the Board of Selectmen, the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission, and the Board of Assessors. Notification of certificate mailed to the State Forester was also received. So, I would make a motion that the board directs a letter to be issued to Elena Jesperson, owner of 6 Marsh Meadow Lane, acknowledging the receipt of the notice to sell Chapter 61B property at 6 Marsh Meadow Lane, Byfield. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Second, the town has the right of refusal to acquire chapter land when it is being sold or converted to another use. The town may also assign its right of first refusal to a qualified nonprofit organization or agency of the Commonwealth, or vote to waive its right of first refusal. Motion, to aid the Board of Selectmen in determining if the town should waive exercise or assign its rights of refusal, the board instructs that the respective town boards, committees, and departments be notified of the notice to intent to sell Chapter 61B property, 6 Marsh Meadow Lane, Byfield, Assessors Map, R22, Lot 10F. Comments are to be received no later than March 9th, 2020.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Damon, you're all set. We have some proposed zoning amendments for the spring 2020 annual town meeting.
I move that the zoning amendments be referred back to the planning board for a public hearing.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have 3 citizens petitions for insertion in the warrant for the April 28th, 2020 annual town meeting. 3 amendments to change the dimensions of the Parker River Residential Use District.
I move that these be referred to the planning board for a public hearing.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so tonight, we have a couple matters to deal with. We have a board ethics complaint, investigation, and resolution regarding Selectman Mike Doyle. And I'm gonna start with an address to the crowd. This deliberation and discussion tonight is a matter that pertains to the Board of Selectmen. It's not a public matter. There will be no public comment during this session. And there'll be one warning for anyone that disrupts the assembly. On the second warning, you'll be escorted out by one of our fine officers. Until you're able to regain your self-control, then you'll be allowed to re-enter the assembly. These are serious matters, and in order to assure a fair process for everybody involved, that's the way it must be. I've delegated some authority to the chief and the deputy chief tonight to keep eyes in the back of the crowd, just to maintain decorum. I've never once had to eject a person from a meeting, and I don't want tonight to be the first time. So I please ask you all, you're welcome to be here, you're welcome to observe, but please don't disturb this proceeding. The board was provided the results of 3 matters which were referred to me regarding the conduct of Selectman Doyle. Number 1, a matter referred by Selectman Jesperson involving Selectman Doyle seeking the DPW to undertake work for Mr. Doyle, and from Selectman Jesperson and Selectwoman Greco regarding Selectman Doyle's appearances at meetings with Triton during the time Selectman Doyle continued to work for Triton. Number 2, we have a matter involving Selectman Doyle's conduct in Town Hall and in connection with the town administrator. Number 3, we have a matter involving Selectman Doyle soliciting a subcontractor of the police station project to undertake work for him in his private residence. I followed the code of ethics. I undertook an investigation. I provided Selectman Doyle with an opportunity to respond to each complaint, and now I've presented all of that to you. Under the code of ethics which the board adopted last year, it is now up to the board to determine how it wants to handle these matters. So we're going to start with number 1. Okay, this is to do with complaints of conduct unbecoming, an appearance of impropriety, investigation and opportunity to prevent defense, and exculpatory evidence. Fellow board members, pursuant to Section 5 of the Board of Selectmen Code of Ethics, enforcement process, I hereby report that after conducting an investigation under Section 4, there is sufficient basis upon which to determine that member Michael Doyle has violated the code, and that the board could so reasonably find. And I am going to start with the Jesperson complaint. On October 13th, 2019, and January 8th, 2020, respectively, I received an email from Board Vice Chair Damon Jesperson, attached here to his Exhibit A. The emails allege the following. Doyle asked Department of Public Works Director Head James Surratt to do work at his private residence. At that time, it was unclear to Surratt whether Doyle was asking him to have the DPW or his own private landscape business perform the work. The second part of the Jesperson
Can I respond to
complaint.
that?
You will have a chance to respond, Mike.
Thank
but
you, sir.
Please let me
All right. I just
give
don't
my
wanna
report.
I just want to get too much out of hand.
Yep. I don't either. Doyle attended and spoke at a number of Triton District Communication Committee meetings, despite the board's requirement that he recuse himself from such meetings as a condition of its approval of him receiving a stipend from both the Triton Regional School District and the town. Third part, Doyle has routinely conducted himself in a manner unbecoming of his office, such as making members of the town hall staff uncomfortable, leaving Jesperson a threatening voicemail before an emergency meeting, and having angry outbursts, among other things. As to the threatening voicemail specifically, Doyle demanded that Jesperson explain why the meeting was convened and threatened that if he failed to comply, he would flood the meeting with the supporters. The second part of this is the Greco complaint. On October 21st, 2019, I received a letter from board member Alicia Greco, attached here to his Exhibit B. The letter alleges the following. Doyle attended the DCC meeting held at Raleigh Town Hall on September 5th, 2019 as a representative of the town. During the meeting, he indicated that he would vote in the affirmative when the subject discussing the alternative assessment funding formula with the other two towns once again became before the board. Doyle attended the DCC meeting held at the Triton High School on October 10th, 2019 as a representative of the town. During the meeting, Greco indicated that he had a conflict of interest because the board voted that he could accept both municipal payments and if he recused himself around Triton issues. In response, Doyle indicated that he didn't feel that way, especially since he had given his notice earlier that day. After reviewing members Jesperson's and Greco's complaints and crediting their respective account of Doyle's misconduct, I conclude there is sufficient evidence to show that he may have violated the following, the preceding Code of Ethics rules. Now, I'm going to read Selectman Doyle's defense, and we will get to a discussion point here, Mike, so don't.
It's about on that page.
Yep. This is Mike Doyle's opportunity to defend himself and present any exculpatory evidence. In accordance with Section 4 of the enforcement process, I informed Doyle of the Jesperson and Greco complaints and the subsequent investigation in writing. In that same document, I gave Doyle the opportunity to respond to the complaints. Doyle responded in two letters, one addressing the Jesperson complaint and the other addressing the Greco complaint, each dated February 8th, 2020, attached here to his Exhibits D and E. Doyle defended himself against respective complaints as follows. In response to the Jesperson complaint in Highway Department allegations, Jesperson's allegations are not only wrong, but false and misleading. 2, Jesperson failed to establish a date or what work was discussed. 3, Doyle spoke with Surratt to do work at his home in the fall. 4, Doyle was well aware that Mr. Surratt had his own landscaping business at this time. And Mr. Surratt explained to Mr. Doyle that he was not able to help him due to the perception that if he did the work for him under his personal business, the residents may construe this as inappropriate. Selectman Doyle understood Surratt's explanation and pursued the matter no further. Now, again, the Triton Communications Committee allegations. Again, Jesperson did not obtain the facts. Doyle was not employed or being compensated by the Triton Regional High School when DCC meetings at issue took place. Mike says that he was invited to the meeting by Superintendent Bryant Forget, and Jesperson's allegations are duplicative, as Greco had already alleged the same in October 2019. Now for allegations of conduct unbecoming. Mike's response is that Jesperson's allegations are vague generalities and contain no facts. He also added that Jesperson is thin-skinned. As to Jesperson's allegation that Doyle threatened to flood the meeting with the supporters, Doyle maintains that such meetings are open to the public, which means anyone and everyone can attend. Now we're going to move on to Selectman Doyle's response to the Greco complaint. Greco made the complaint 11 weeks before Doyle received the Step 4 letter.
September 4th.
Yeah, on September 4th. Two, Selectman Doyle says he was not employed or being compensated by the Triton Regional High School when the DCC meetings at issue took place. He resigned from his position at the school a few days prior. As such, there was nothing prohibiting him from attending the meetings. Mike also answers that he was invited to the meeting by Superintendent Brian Forget, who was aware of his resignation. Mike adds that Doyle had no duty to inform Greco of his resignation. He says that at the DCC meetings, Greco shouted that Doyle not sit at the table in a loud voice, which drew attention to both of them. He claims Greco's conduct was disrespectful and violated the code of ethics. And Selectman Doyle filed a complaint against Selectwoman Greco for violating the code, specifically the preamble in sections 1, 3, 4, 5, and 16. And now I will present findings before we move to discussion. So, these are further investigations by the chair. As to the Highway Department matter, Doyle does not dispute any of Jesperson's allegations. Indeed, Doyle claims that Surratt declined to perform the work for him because doing so would create the appearance of impropriety. I spoke with Mr. Surratt on February 19th, 2020, at approximately 5:19 p.m. to determine whether Doyle did, in fact, ask him to perform work at his residence. Surratt stated that Doyle did so in the fall and confirmed Jesperson's claim that it was unclear whether Doyle was asking Surratt in his capacity as the head of the DPW or as the owner of a private business. Surratt further submitted that there was nothing particularly odd or imposing about the exchange, but he declined to perform the service for Doyle, even in his capacity as a private business owner, given the possible appearance of impropriety. Surratt maintained that Doyle quickly agreed and did not pursue the matter any farther. Given Doyle's speedy acquiescence to Surratt's response, his refraining from pursuing the matter any further, and the benign nature of the exchange, Doyle's request amounts to, at worst, a perceived ambiguity, and as such, I feel fails to rise to the level of a Rule 1 violation. As to conduct unbecoming, Doyle does not dispute Jesperson's claim that he threatened him. Doyle merely asserts that he had the right to flood the meeting if he wanted to. Doyle likewise does not dispute Jesperson's claim regarding his treatment of town hall staff and angry outbursts. He rather attacks Jesperson by calling him thin-skinned. As to whether Doyle was employed and being compensated by the school district when he attended DCC meetings, Triton Superintendent Brian Forget confirmed that Doyle attended the May 23rd, September 5th, and October 10th, 2019 DCC meetings. After speaking with Brian Forget on February 19th, 2020 at approximately 5:37 p.m., Forget also informed me that Doyle worked for the Triton School District until October 25th, 2019. As noted above, on July 16th, 2019, the board voted to permit Selectman Doyle to receive both his pay from Triton and his pay from the town of Newbury, provided that he recuse himself of matters related to the Triton Regional School System, and on the condition that the Selectmen receive written confirmation from the Ethics Board, as outlined by Town Council. Hence, by failing to recuse himself from the meetings noted above, Doyle failed to abide by a lawful decision made by the board. Accordingly, pursuant to Section 5 of the Code's enforcement process, I hereby report that after conducting an investigation under Section 4 and considering Doyle's response to the same, there is sufficient basis upon which to determine that he has violated Rules 3, 4, 6, 13, 14, and 15 of the Code, and that the board could so reasonably find. I decline to continue to report the Jesperson complaint to the board to the extent that it alleges a Rule 1 violation. However, please be advised that by declining to do so, I do not make a judgment as to the credibility of the allegations against Doyle or the credibility of his response to the same. Based upon Section 5, I am unable to establish whether there is sufficient basis upon which to determine that Doyle violated Rule 1. So pursuant to Section 6 of the enforcement process, the board shall determine the following consideration of the evidence presented by me and the information received by Selectman Doyle. A, whether the alleged conduct is substantiated by the evidence presented, and if so, whether such conduct violated the code, and if so, which of the 3 penalties set forth in Section 17 of the code will be imposed. Each of the foregoing determinations will require a majority vote of the board. The board may thereafter determine that the penalties set forth in Section 17 shall be imposed as follows. In addition to any other penalties or remedies as may be provided by law, the Board of Selectmen may intervene in council members whose conduct does not comply with the town's ethical standards. When a member violation is apparent as prescribed in this code of ethics, the actions taken may range from a letter of reprimand from the board to a censure to a request from resignation from the elected position. All penalties shall require a majority vote of the Board of Selectmen before being imposed upon the member determined to be in violation. So now I would entertain a motion so we can have discussion.
I make the motion that we discuss.
Second.
I'm,
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to make a further motion.
Okay.
As to the complaint from me and Selectwoman Greco regarding Selectman Doyle's participation in matters involving Triton, even though Selectman Doyle participated in matters with Triton against the board's vote because he's no longer an employee of Triton, the board issue a letter of censure to the Selectman for going against the vote of the board, allowing him to take a salary from the town and from Triton. As to the complaint from me regarding the DPW and hedges, I recommend the board forward those complaints to the Ethics Commission for their review and determination, given that those matters are likely within the Ethics Commission's jurisdiction.
Second. Discussion.
All right, first of all, I want to start off the meeting by saying, when this was all dropped to me this week that was got this serious, I obtained an attorney, and my attorney asked for a 30-day continuance just so he could be caught up to date. But it was denied by you. That being said, we'll continue tonight. First issue, the DPW. I had just had major shoulder surgery, and I had a shoulder replacement. I had a landscaping business. I saw Mr. Surratt across the street doing work on the fire station. I kindly went over to him. I said, listen, I just found out you own Parker River Landscaping. I did not know that. Okay? I said to him kindly, I said, would you be interested in taking over my account? And I also said to him, I have a bunch of accounts that aren't being taken care of. I could give you the names if you wanted them. I thought I was being a nice guy to him. But that being said, I never once said, I'm a selectman, like, do the work for me. If the impropriety's there, I will make a big change in the way I talk to anyone in this town. Okay? Number 2, the complaint from Mr. Jesperson. Okay? Let's start off with, before I got this complaint, I've got an email where you called me an a-hole. Okay? And you said to me after a meeting, I will call you anything I want. So when I reported that, why aren't you on the ethics board on the thing? Okay? And like I said, and also I'll go to the other issue where Mr. Colby, okay, you said to me before the election, you screamed at me at a public meeting. And you brought my wife and I into the back room and you apologized and you said, I've got a medical condition that I have anger issues.
That is not true, Selectman Doyle.
My wife, would you stand up, Leslie, and just repeat that what I just said was true?
JR, it is most certainly true. With the gentleman outside the door, that's where our conversation took place. You explained to me about your medical condition, which I will not divulge that conversation. You did say you had anger issues, and you apologized for yelling and said you will try very hard to control your temper. You said that to me, you said that to Michael, we said, okay, we accepted your apology, and that was it. You can deny it all you want. I was a witness to this conversation
That's
because I
fine.
originally wanted to
Please
talk to you
take a
about
seat.
something
There is
different.
no public comment. That statement is a bold-faced lie.
Okay? All right, can I continue, okay? So, getting back to the, what, excuse me? What? Okay, getting back to the, Surratt thing, like I said, I did no wrong there. Getting back to the Thornton voicemail, I have no idea what you're talking about, and I said that to you, and I said that to, the chairman, okay? Getting back to the Greco complaint, it happened on October 18th. Why didn't it wait till February it was brought to my attention? This has been a calculated on this group, okay? Of piling stuff up, okay, and let's all hit them with it once, and okay, and the ethics board thing. Why did we even make an ethics for just the selectmen and not for the town? It's like it always was. I remember somebody in the audience says, it looks like this is being made to go after Selectman Doyle, and that was back in November. Like I said, the Greco complaint, Alicia, I'm sorry, you did yell at me that night. You said, you can't sit here. And like I said, to the point where Freeman Condon, Selectman, came over to me and said, what's that about? Mr. Forger came over to me and said, what's that about? He said, I thought you guys were on the same team. Okay? I said, yes, I have resigned. If I made a mistake about timing and I was supposed to write a letter, I apologize. I will work on those things, okay? But like I said, since I've been on this board, I've been treated as an island. I've made motions that aren't seconded. I get information late. I get emails late. I mean, it's like, if they're in my packet, if an email is to the Board of Selectmen 10 days before, I should have that the first day, okay? The fact that I get it 6, 7 days later. I got mail last two weeks ago, okay, or 3 weeks ago at one of the meetings, dated December 19th, and it was January. Okay, that's unacceptable. So I got the Greco complaint, I got the Jesperson complaint. I was told by town council that there was no cooling off period. That's why I went to the meetings and spoke. Findings, so I just found out the owners, okay, yeah, okay. Think for this one, right now, that's enough,
Okay,
okay?
other discussion?
Well, you read my letter that I wrote back in October. I did not raise my voice to Selectman Doyle. I texted the superintendent of schools, and I specifically asked him for his recollection of whether or not I raised my voice. And he said he's never heard me yell at all, ever, never mind in a public meeting. I believe that allegation of complaint against me is gonna come separately to the board, so I hope you'll do the same investigation that you did here on that, and I expect to be exonerated on that one. I move that we censure, I move that we censure Selectman Doyle on the, my complaint. I don't think there's sufficient evidence, I feel there isn't sufficient evidence on Damon's complaint, for, Jim Surratt's piece.
That's not included.
Yeah, so I feel, me personally, that, we voted back in July to allow Selectman Doyle to keep both his earned income from doing both jobs, because he was going to do the work of both jobs. And we specifically requested that at items around the regional school agreement and around appointing a school committee member, that he not participate in any conversation. These are recordings, they're recorded, that's the evidence that JR found. So I just feel that we should just censure him on that.
If I may? The reason that I brought up the issue with Surratt is because of the appearance of impropriety. I don't claim to to know if there was impropriety or not, but I feel that just the mere appearance requires the investigation and the finding. I'm happy to accept Doyle's account of his intentions, but I think it needed to be investigated, otherwise it taints the image of the whole board. And so that is why I brought that forward. As to the threatening behavior and instances of that, the only one that I had that was clear or citable was the voicemail, and that's why I mentioned that one. I think it has been apparent that his demeanor is not always conducive to what we would like in town hall. And I think there's further evidence of that to follow. So that's why I brought those issues up.
Can I ask a question?
Would you like to make any comments, Jeff?
I basically agree at this stage because further along, things seem to repeat themselves. I agree with Alicia's motion because those dates seem to be perfectly cast in stone. The thing with James Surratt, I'm not positive that it deserves a censure, because you probably shouldn't do that, but beyond that, I have to function on that one. But I certainly agree because of the dates of when Mike was at the meetings, he shouldn't have voted.
Would you like to add something, Mike?
Yeah, as far as threatening, in town hall, I had one incident with the town administrator, which we'll discuss later. But who else in town hall is threatened by me? I get along very well with everyone in town hall. I get it very well with everyone in the library committee, at the library. I get along with the veterans. I get along with the senior citizens. I've been through all of them, and I haven't had one issue. That's number one. Number two, I'm gonna go back to the way I've been treated. You still haven't responded to the text I got from you saying, call me an a-hole. Okay, and I brought that to your attention. I still haven't never responded for you when you sent out election day, when you are the chairman. Doyle doesn't have this town in his heart.
I didn't say that.
I'll get the copy. I've got the email.
It's not what I said.
Oh, what did you say? Tell me what you said, Chairman.
It's not for discussion tonight. It's on the record.
But it is. You said vote with Chuck Baer. Selectman Doyle does not have the best interest for the town of Newbury in his heart. Okay,
We have a motion.
Oh, well, I'm not done
In a
talking.
second.
I can't talk? I can't talk?
You have something to add, Mr. Thurlow? That's your first warning.
Okay,
Stop bullying people.
like I said, I'm gonna go back.
Please take a break.
Also, I wanna go back to the way Mr. Thurlow was treated at a meeting once when you asked him to get up, okay? You said to him,
None of this is relevant
yes,
to
it
the
is
claims
relevant,
tonight.
because it's.
None of it
you
is
people
relevant
hold
to
me
the
to this
claims.
it is relevant, you hold me to this standard, and you people aren't held to the same standard.
Do we have a second? We have two more of these to get through. It's gonna be plenty of discussion.
I second the censure.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I ask what's involved in a censure?
We'll just get a letter.
Point of order, was that for, how many people voted on it?
No distractions, please. No interruptions.
Isn't it the count of the vote? 4, thank you.
All right, we're gonna move on to the second piece of this. Alleged violation of the Board of Selectmen Code of Ethics, inappropriate employee interaction, report of investigation, and findings of fact. Fellow board members, pursuant to Section 5 of the Board of Selectmen Code of Ethics enforcement process, I hereby report that after conducting an investigation under Section 4, there is a sufficient basis upon which to determine that member Michael Doyle has violated the code, and that the board could so reasonably find. On November 13th, 2019, the chairman of the Human Resources Board, Mark Gleckman, received a written grievance from Town Administrator Tracy Blaze alleging the following. On November 13th, 2019, at approximately 11 a.m., Doyle interrupted a meeting between Blaze and myself, being me, the chairman, by storming into her office in an aggressive and extremely agitated manner. screaming that he had an issue with her. Still screaming, Doyle then berated Blaze for the next 10 minutes, claiming that it was Blaze's fault that his neighbor, John Newtile, was angry with him. Doyle was audible to the entire municipal office. During this tirade, Doyle called the building inspector, put him on speakerphone, and interrogated him about the conversations he had with Blaze regarding the issue that gave rise to Mr. Newtile's discontent. Doyle did so in an attempt to put the two at odds with one another. In response, Blaze explained to Mr. Doyle that she was following up on his prior directive regarding Mr. Newtile, and that although she was willing to discuss the issue, screaming would not be tolerated. Blaze also told Doyle that his behavior was very disruptive to the office environment and must stop. Then as Doyle turned to leave her office, Blaze said to me, "That was pleasant." To which he responded by turning around and re-entering her office in a threatening manner again, stating, "Do you have something else to say to me?" The foregoing behavior was inappropriate, unprofessional, and disrespectful, and caused Administrator Blaze to feel belittled, embarrassed, and fearful for her safety. Doyle often uses his position to try to influence the process of evaluation rather than allowing it to take its course. Doyle's behavior was disruptive and affected the entire operation. The issue that gave rise to the foregoing incident involves Doyle's November 5th, 2019 inquiry regarding the town's business and signage regulations. On that date, Doyle met with Blaze in her office and asked why the butchery was not allowed to erect an A-frame sign advertisement. He also asked whether the corner cupboard could erect a sign like John Newtile did at the corner of High Road and Morgan Avenue to advertise manure for sale. Blaze responded that she was unable to answer Doyle's questions, but that she would consult the town planner and the building inspector. In doing so, the building inspector discovered that Mr. Newtile's sign was illegal. Accordingly, the building inspector asked that Mr. Newtile take a sign down. In addition, Blaze stated that she had become very concerned about Doyle's escalating anger, was increasingly uncomfortable with his representation of third-party interest, and that she's also concerned about reprisals. I'm going to move on to defense presented by Selectman Doyle.
Can we read the whole letter too this time?
Mike, we will get to discussion. In accordance with Section 4 of the enforcement process, I informed Doyle of Blaze's grievance in my subsequent investigation in writing. In that same document, I gave Doyle the opportunity to respond to the foregoing allegations, findings of fact, and violations by inviting him to meet with me, Town Council, Lisa Mead, and the Chair of the Human Resources Board, Mark Gleckman. Instead of doing that, Doyle chose to respond in writing and send me a letter dated January 6, 2020. I received the letter on January 8th. In it, Doyle, amongst other things, offers a litany of alleged misconduct and violations of the code by myself and several other members that went unpunished. He also claims that such disparate treatment is evidence of discriminatory animus against him, and claims that Administrator Blaze mischaracterized part of her conversation with the building inspector. Doyle affirmed his behavior and offered an apology in his letter, which provided, "I agree my interaction on November 13th, 2019 with Miss Blaze was wrong and inappropriate, for which I have apologized." And Doyle also sent Blaze an apology via electronic mail on December 18th, 2019. Accordingly, pursuant to Section 5 of the Code's enforcement process, I hereby report that after conducting an investigation under Section 4, there is sufficient basis upon which to determine that Doyle has violated the code, and that the board could so reasonably find. And I am going to move to findings of fact before we get to discussion. Based on my review of the underlying grievance, my interviews with Administrator Blaze, those present at the meeting, those participating via speakerphone, and those in the general vicinity of Blaze's office, and my own recollection of Doyle's conduct at the meeting, I have made the following findings of facts. Doyle came into Town Hall on November 13th, 2019 at approximately 11 a.m. Upon his arrival, Doyle demonstrated through his demeanor and voice that he was agitated, frustrated, and angry. Doyle yelled at Administrator Blaze very loudly and in a confrontational manner. While not concerned for their own safety, those present indicated to me that they were concerned for Blaze's safety, and that the only reason they declined to act was because they knew I was in there to assist Administrator Blaze if need be. Doyle interrupted my meeting with Administrator Blaze in a loud confrontational manner. Those present immediately outside of the administrator's office and those in her office all represented that Doyle leaned into and over Blaze's desk with an aggressive, loud, and agitated tone. Those employees could hear the actual conversation represent that Blaze attempted to calm Selectman Doyle down. The employees believed that Selectman Doyle's behavior was concerning, disruptive, and inappropriate. Several employees stated that Doyle's behavior was not an isolated incident, and that, while not to the same agitated extent, it had occurred in the past. An employee also provided that typically he's calm and social. The cause of this agitation was the enforcement action taken by the building inspector, who was reacting to a request from Blaze based upon the request Doyle made concerning A-frame signs for Mr. Nudile in the butchery. Once Mr. Nudile learned that it was Doyle who requested that the freestanding signs be reviewed, he confronted Doyle regarding the same, which prompted Doyle's inquiry into Blaze's involvement. The next morning, Doyle went to town hall apparently agitated that the source of the request for enforcement had been disclosed. Based upon my findings of fact, there is sufficient evidence to show that Doyle violated the following code of ethics rules: 2, 3, 13, 15. So now I would entertain a motion so we can have discussion.
Motion made.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I
Like-
start?
You may.
Thank you. Okay, what happened exactly? I was walking my dog up the street, and John Newtile, who's my neighbor for 4 years, came out screaming at me. And basically he goes, "You had my sign taken away. You had my sign taken away." I says, "John, I didn't." Okay? And then I said, but I will find out who took your sign. It was Sam Joslin, the building inspector. So I got in my car and I drove here, and I asked, who's Sam's assistant? Jen? I asked Jen, "Is Sam in?" "No, he's not, but I'll give you his number." So I went into his office where Doug Packer usually is and Sam, and I made a phone call. I said, "Sam, why would you have the sign?" And he says, "My boss, Tracy Blaze, told me to pick up the sign," and he says, "and to blame Doyle." That was a quote. Okay? So at which point, I walked into the office and I said to Tracy, "Why would you do that to me?" I says, "I've got a neighbor freaked out at me." And she said, "I didn't," and I just took my phone, I put it on speaker and called Sam. "Sam, repeat." And that's the only interaction I have with Sam. He repeated exactly what he said to me. Okay? At which point, the voices did escalate, and I apologize for that. Okay? But I was upset. Okay? I said, so as far as the history of it, I go to the butchery every day. And they said to me, "Could we put a sign?" I said, "I have no idea." And I says, and it was Doug Packer who gave me the laws and things for the signs, and I gave it to the butchery, and that was my hands washed. I had nothing else to do with the signs of the thing. Okay? Real quickly, findings. I leaned into the desk. I never left the doorway, number one. Okay? And like I said, I was upset, and I did apologize for that. But it's like I said, my name is valuable to me. When I have a neighbor of 40 years yelling at me because I did something I didn't do, unacceptable. What just happened? Okay. Okay, also there was a thing in your report, Chairman. This has happened in the past. When and with who? I want to know this because
That's all from town employee testimony.
Who?
It's all in these records.
But
And it's
who?
all gonna be public information. The
Okay.
documents speak for themselves.
okay? Since I've been elected, okay, there's been a group of, in this board, okay, that have not liked me, and I have not figured out why, but the bottom line is, it's like, let's go stand up people in town hall right now that are here and ask them if I've had any problem with them. And the answer is no.
The documents speak for themselves.
Oh, that's in your mind. Another word, that influence position, What do you mean by that?
The documents speak for themselves, Mike.
Okay?
It's all public record.
Good, okay. It's all yours.
Would anyone like to speak?
I'll speak then. On this one, Mike, this is serious. You know, in these days and times, you cannot trap, I want to say, I gotta
do you mean
choose
trap?
my words. In an office, you're in the doorway,
I
Tracy's,
wasn't trapping her.
Tracy's,
Let Ms. Selectman Walker
Tracy
speak, please.
is female. You cannot harass, it's a serious offense. And that's stuff that I take pretty seriously. And this one is, you know, that's why it made it all the way up to the personnel board. This one is serious, so this one's hard to talk away.
Would anyone else like to make comments?
I'd like to make a motion. I move as to the complaint regarding Selectman Doyle's conduct in town hall and with regard to his interactions with the town administrator, I recommend the board issue a censure and advise that such behavior will not be tolerated from anyone in town hall or as to any town employee.
Second.
Sounds fair to me, yep.
What stands out to me on this one is that, because you were a witness, the town, me, Talman, and Costa did the interviews.
Town council conducted the interviews. I didn't want any appearance of impropriety
And
since I was
there-
present for the incident.
Right, so there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 witnesses that they interviewed that all agree with what the complaint that was filed against.
The documents speak for themselves.
The town administrator. So,
This was one incident. They're saying in my, here that I have a history of doing this. I wanna know the history is, because I don't see the history in those documents. Also, can I make one other statement? Town council, 18 years ago, 19 years ago, when I was selectman, tried to sue me as a mayor of Newburyport. Front page of Newburyport News, Mayor Mead is going to sue Selectman Doyle because it was over the Vermont Water and Storage Project. I said then, and I said to you, when you said you were turning this over to Lisa, she has got a vendetta against me and I wanted somebody else. But you didn't think to see that it was a conflict of interest. Well, 4 lawyers think there is.
so it says here, one of the witnesses here, Mr. Kramer, added that it was not unusual for Selectman Doyle to come into the office with a raised voice toward the town administrator, as it has happened before. It was not the first time. Mr. Kramer did add that Selectman Doyle came into the office a day or two later as if everything was normal, which seemed strange because I did not know how he was going to react. So you've got employees of the town on edge that he's behaving this way. You can't come in and create a hostile work environment.
Someday your name will be dragged through the mud.
You just can't behave like that. You already have dragged it through the mud, Mike, you're lying about me.
Okay, we're not gonna,
Yep. That's
Now,
it.
we're not gonna go there.
I think Damon's motion, and I don't remember, he can repeat it, I think that's a fair motion. Mike, this one, none of us can do it, you can't do it, and you apologize
I did
for it. And I
apologize.
think the
Apology was
motion
accepted.
that you have is a fair motion, can you read it again?
As to the complaint regarding Selectman Doyle's conduct in town hall and with regard to his interactions with the town administrator, I recommend the board issue a censure and advise that such behavior will not be tolerated from anyone in town hall or as to any town employee.
I think that's a fair motion.
Um,
It's been seconded.
Is there anything that, I don't know if there's anything the personnel board can do, can we refer?
At this time,
That's
to
it.
maintain confidentiality and respect for the process, I think we should let the documents speak for themselves.
Okay,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we're gonna move on to part 3. Board of Selectmen members' use of public resources for personal purposes. Report of investigation and findings of fact. Fellow board members, pursuant to Section 5 of the Board of Selectmen Code of Ethics Enforcement Process, I hereby report that after conducting an investigation under Section 4, there is sufficient basis upon which to determine that member Michael Doyle has violated the code, and that the board could so reasonably find. On January 2nd, 2020, Deputy Chief of Police John Lucy Jr. sent a memorandum to Town Administrator Tracy Blaze, attached here to his Exhibit A, titled Citizen Concern Regarding Abuse of Office, Selectman Doyle. The memorandum alleges as follows. On January 2nd, 2020, at approximately 15:15 hours, Deputy Chief Lucy was in the town's fire station parking lot watching the tree removal services being performed at the site for the town's new police station. At this time, firefighter Ed Donnelly approached the deputy chief and related that he was frustrated regarding the landscape work being done at Selectman Doyle's residence at number 6 Morgan Ave. Specifically, Donnelly stated that it must be nice to get your yard work done for nothing. Must be nice to be a selectman. At the time, the deputy chief observed 2 tree workers walking away from the area directly in front of 6 Morgan Avenue, where there was a large amount of debris well into the eastbound traffic lane. The deputy chief then contacted the town administrator and informed her of Donnelly's comments. In response, she requested that the deputy chief photograph the scene. He did as instructed, and the photographs are attached here to his Exhibit B, and speak with one of the tree removal workers to determine why they left the site to do work at a private residence. The deputy chief then approached one of the tree removal workers and asked him about the debris in front of 6 Morgan Avenue. The worker replied that they were just about to get it cleaned up. The deputy chief then asked if it came from the new police station work site. In response, the worker pointed at 6 Morgan Avenue and stated that the debris came from the property at that address. The deputy chief then asked the worker, "That worked out nice. How much do you charge for that?" The worker replied, "We just took care of it." He said he was a selectman in town, so he just took care of it. The deputy chief then asked, "No charge?" To which the worker answered, "Nope, we took care of it for him." So then there was a subsequent investigation by the chief of police. After notifying, I'll start again, please no interruptions. After notifying the administrator of Donnelly's allegations, the deputy chief notified Police Chief Michael Riley. The chief then contacted the town administrator to determine what, if any, action should be taken. The town administrator advised the chief that she forwarded all the information to the Board of Selectmen chairman and town council for review. The chief then contacted me, the chairman, via telephone to discuss the matter, at which time I asked him to personally investigate the foregoing allegations to determine whether they could be substantiated. I then sent the chief an email requesting the same, attached here to his Exhibit C. The investigation consisted of 6 witness interviews. The chief redacted 2 witness interview names due to whistleblower concerns. Below is a summary of the chief's investigation and findings, attached here to his Exhibit D. Interviews. Number 1. Interview with firefighter Ed Donnelly, January 2nd, 2020, at approximately 1700 hours. From the outset, Donnelly was upset that his comments to the deputy chief had led to an investigation. He claimed that he was only joking when speaking to the deputy chief about the tree workers clearing debris from Doyle's property. He also claimed that the deputy chief took it too far. Donnelly stated that he and 2 other citizens, respectively Witness 2 and Witness 3, were joking around about the work being done. He stated that he did not want to upset Doyle because he was the only selectman who supported full-time coverage for the overnight shift. Donnelly exclaimed that the removal of brush from Doyle's property was no big deal and that the town was overreacting. He further claimed that the timing was awful as Selectman Doyle is in their pocket and he did not want to ruin that. Donnelly told the chief he did not want his name included in the investigation and that he would deny that he ever made the alleged comments to the deputy chief. When the chief refused his request, Donnelly became upset and abruptly left the meeting. Interview with witness number 2 on January 2nd, 2020, 17:33 hours. The chief asked witness number 2 what, if any, observations he made of the tree removal crew. Witness number 2 responded that he observed the crew's wood chipper parked across the street from Doyle's house, and that the workers were removing brush from the front of the house and feeding it into the wood chipper. Witness number 2 stated that he, Donnelly, and witness number 3 were frustrated by what they were witnessing. He also stated that he did not think it was proper for Selectman Doyle to have such services performed free of charge. Witness number 2 stated that he did not see Doyle at any time. Lastly, witness number 2 claimed that the only time the wood chipper was removed from the work site was when it was used to dispose of the brush from Selectman Doyle's property. Then we have an telephone interview with witness number 3, January 2nd, 2020, approximately 17:41 hours. Witness number 3's version of events was consistent with witness number 2. Witness number 3 further stated that he did not think it was right for that town equipment was being used for a private citizen's personal use. Witness number 3 claimed that he, witness number 2, and Donnelly were upset by what they witnessed, and they were talking about it for some time. Like witness number 2, witness number 3 stated that he did not see Doyle at any time. Number 4, telephone interview with the tree crew supervisor on January 3rd, 2020 at approximately 11:09. This is Gideon Carlos Dos Santos. Dos Santos claimed that he was approached by one of his workers, who then informed him that the person across the street asked them to chip the brush pile in his front yard. Dos Santos stated that he gave the worker permission for the work to be done. Dos Santos submitted that the tree removal company was not paid for the services rendered, nor was any payment offered. Dos Santos claimed that the price of the services would have been $150 if equipment was already on site, and $600 if it was not. Number 5, there's a telephone interview with tree removal worker Robert Soto on January 3rd, 2020, approximately 11:32 hours. When asked about the work done across the street from the new police station work site, Soto explained that he was approached by the site supervisor, Chris Farnell, who asked him if the company could take care of the brush pile across the street. Soto maintained that Farnell told him that the property from which the company was asked to clear the brush belonged to a selectman. Soto also claimed that Farnell told him that he wanted the company to take care of the selectman. In response, Soto told Farnell that he would have to obtain permission from a supervisor. Soto stated that he obtained permission to do so and then used the wood chipper to remove the brush from the property. Number 6, interview with BC Construction Project Manager Christopher Farnell on January 3rd, 2020, approximately 1200 hours. Farnell claimed that he observed Doyle and one of his neighbors standing at the entrance to the construction site on the day in question. Farnell approached the two because he knew that some neighbors were concerned about the project. Farnell submitted that before conversing with them, he was aware that Doyle was a town selectman, but was uncertain whether Doyle verbally informed him of the same. Farnell maintained that Doyle did, however, give him his Newbury Board of Selectmen business card attached here to his Exhibit E. Farnell claimed that during his ensuing conversation, Doyle requested that he be able to run his brush pile through the company's wood chipper. Farnell stated that he agreed to Doyle's request because he didn't want to make any waves, and that he thought doing so would smooth over any neighborhood animosity. Accordingly, Farnell asked one of the tree removal company employees to dispose of the brush pile as Doyle requested. Farnell observed that upon hearing that the company agreed to dispose of the brush, Doyle was quite happy and told him that he had connections in town and if he ever needed anything, to just call him.
Excuse me, repeat
Farnell
that, please?
claimed, please let me finish, there will be discussion. Farnell observed that upon hearing that the company agreed to dispose of the brush, Doyle was quite happy and told him that he had connections in town hall, and if he ever needed anything, to just call him. Farnell claimed that he and Doyle never discussed payment for the services rendered. Number 7, interview with Selectman Michael Doyle on January 3rd, 2020 at approximately 1400 hours. Upon being informed of the reason for the investigation, Selectman Doyle became upset and claimed that he had not done anything wrong. Doyle also requested the name of the underlying complainant. When asked how the tree removal company came to dispose of the brush from Doyle's property, he answered that he spoke with a worker at the construction site and asked if he could bring his brush pile over to the site to run through the chipper. He submitted that he offered to pay and also offered to bring his brush over to the site himself. When asked if he identified himself to anyone as a town selectman, Doyle responded that he may have done so on January 1st, but not on January 2nd. Doyle submitted that he was away from his house as the service was performed. Doyle remained upset throughout the investigation, repeatedly stating that he did nothing wrong and that he could not believe the investigation was taking place. He requested the names of Donnelly, Witness 2, and Witness 3, but the chief declined. Findings. Chief Riley made the following findings of fact. It was clear that both the tree workers and the project manager were well aware of Mr. Doyle's status as a selectman prior to the work taking place. It is disputed whether Mr. Doyle offered to pay for the services, as the tree company workers and the project manager stated that the payment was never discussed, but Mr. Doyle insisted that he offered to pay. It is also clear that the event did not resonate in a positive manner with at least 3 witnesses. And then I'm gonna present Selectman Doyle's defense that he presented. In accordance with Section 4 of the enforcement process, I informed Doyle of Donnelly's complaint and the subsequent investigation in writing. In that same document, I gave Doyle the opportunity to respond to Donnelly's allegations. Doyle chose to respond in a letter dated January 28th, 2020, attached here to his Exhibit F. In his letter, Doyle maintains that the following took place on January 2nd, 2020. In the morning, he asked one of the employees of New England Tree Masters performing the work across the street from his house if they could give him a price to chip some of the branches in his yard. They contacted Farnell to determine whether the tree people could get him a price to chip the branches. He gave Farnell one of his town selectman's card, which had his personal information on the back of it. He went to work and returned home at 4 p.m., at which time the brush pile had yet to be removed or disposed of. He walked across the street, approached Farnell, and asked if he was able to give him a price for disposing the brush. Farnell replied, "Don't worry about it, I'll get back to you." 2 other individuals were present and witnessed this conversation, John Newtile and Alan Pritchard. He then left for a doctor appointment. When he returned home at 5 p.m., the brush was gone. In his letter, Doyle submits that records confirm that he offered to pay for the chipping service and also to bring brush across the street. He also claims that Newtile and Pritchard can attest to the fact that he offered to pay for the services. Lastly, Doyle maintains that he has been in contact with New England Tree Masters and has since paid them $150 for disposing of the brush. Doyle attached a copy of the corresponding invoice to the letter, attached here to his Exhibit G. The invoice is dated January 24th, 2020, and lists a single $150 charge for tree work. I later verified that the invoice was authentic, and that Doyle had in fact paid New England Tree Masters $150. First, Chief Riley's investigation belies Doyle's claim that he offered to pay for the services. According to Dos Santos and Farnell, payment was neither discussed nor offered. Second, even if Selectman Doyle did offer to pay, and Newtile and Pritchard could corroborate the same, he still accepted the service for free of charge after identifying himself to Farnell as selectman. That he paid for the service over 3 weeks later, only after having been made aware of Donnelly's complaint, has no bearing on the underlying violation. Failing to punish a person's misconduct, so long as they attempt to correct it retroactively, would incentivize similar behavior. Accordingly, pursuant to Section 5 of the Code's enforcement process, I hereby report that after conducting an investigation under Section 4, considering Selectman Doyle's response to the same, there is sufficient basis upon which to determine that he has violated the code, and that the board could so reasonably find. Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to discuss.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's start at the beginning, okay? I had tree damage in July, and like I said, it was on the street. Okay, I tried for 7 weeks to get a tree company to come in to do it, but because it was already cut, nobody wanted to come up. January 2nd, I woke up and there's a chipper right next to my driveway, and there was like 6 tree trucks. I walked across the street at roughly 9 o'clock, and I said to a worker, "Can you get me who's in charge?" He got me Mr. Chris Fennell, and I said to Chris, I says, can you get me a price to clean up this stuff? I guess the chip is here. He said to me, give me your contact information and I'll get you a price and I'll let you know. Thus, I gave him my card. Okay, on the back of my card, selectman's card, I have my personal information because I don't get information sent to this time on a timely manner. So I tell people, send it here because I get it that way. So Chris said to me, I'll find out for you and I'll get back to you. I got home at 4, I hadn't heard from Chris yet, and I just said to him, Newtile was there, Pritchard was there, and they all heard me say, how much? How much? And he says, I'll get back to you. All right? That's the first thing. So the next thing I know, I got back from the doctor's office, had my boot taken off, and the stuff's gone. I was gonna go over there the next morning, but the chief calls. Chief says, come down, I wanna talk to you about a complaint. Okay? So when I talked to the chief, the last thing he said to me, he called me, he says, do not talk to anyone about this. So I could not talk to anyone at the site to find out a price. All right, so I did go down to the chief today, though, and ask him who CC1 and CC2 is. Because this has been, and I did call the fire chief, because these quote whistleblowers, if the two people I think, okay, 3 years ago, my wife and I were filmed by the fire department, okay? And the fire department they thought I was dumping stuff across the street. The chief, Jandman, said to them in front of my wife, and I says, if these people bother you again, you will be fired. So if that's the reason why I cannot get their names, I've got a problem with that. Next thing is, the chief also said to me today, this is not a big deal. I don't know why it's gotten to this extent. You did say that to me, yes. You said this is not a big deal.
I said it wasn't a criminal deal in my eyes.
Right,
It might be an ethics.
You didn't say it was this is like, you said it wasn't a big deal to me this morning.
I said it wasn't a criminal investigation,
Okay.
Mike.
All right. Okay, I asked why my witnesses weren't interviewed.
I didn't know about your witnesses until well after I submitted the report to the Board of Selectmen.
Right, but that should have flagged something that we should have stopped this
Well,
tonight.
we should have come out on the day that I interviewed you. You could have said, I have these
I-
two people witnessed everything, and you
I,
didn't.
you gotta understand, Chief, you caught me off guard, and I did say people heard my thing.
We'll let the documents speak for themselves. Please
Okay,
continue.
hold on, I'm not done. The reason I paid them late was because I could not talk to them according to the chief. And in this report that I received, it said that I owed $150. Next morning, I got in my car, I drove to their location, I asked for a receipt, I paid the bill, and I said, done. The only mistake I feel I've made was perception. And I said, I will work on better perception, but this is just nuts.
Any other discussion?
I move that as to the complaint regarding the hedges and the matter with the subcontractor of the police station, I recommend the board forward those complaints to the Ethics Commission for their review and determination, given that those matters are likely within the Ethics Commission's jurisdiction.
Second.
Any other discussion?
I think for everyone involved, and fairness for Michael, fairness for the board, fairness for the residents of the town, to put this to the Ethics Commission is the right thing to do.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. I'll have these decisions reduced to writing and provide them to Selectman Doyle in accordance with our policy. Okay. Moving on with the regularly scheduled agenda. Thank you, everyone, for your cooperation during that time.
Can I ask you a question?
Not at this time. Sure.
So I attended the first MMA Fiscal Policy Committee meeting today by phone. And the two things that they were discussing was, they don't pertain to us. They were host agreements for cities and towns that have pot shops and, recreational marijuana facilities. And the second one was Medicaid reimbursements to school districts. It didn't pertain to us because we have a regional school district. So any Medicaid reimbursements are dealt with Triton. This particular conversation is pending legislation that School Nurses Association are going to ask that these Medicaid reimbursements go directly to the school department rather than the city or town, and I think the MMA is opposed to that. But what I did learn is that the MMA is attending the school budget hearing that's taking place in Malden, and they're gonna be asking for an additional $100 million increase in Chapter 70 funding, in addition to the monies that was put into Chapter 70 from the Student Opportunity Act. So they're very well aware that there's maybe close to 180 school districts that are getting limited help from the Student Opportunity Act, so they're gonna look to try to boost that up. I also learned that there's a big appetite in the legislature to increase the gas tax. They want to increase that and split it between roads and bridges. And I asked the group if they had, because part of the Student Opportunity Act was to put together a commission to look at small towns like ours, and that we're gonna put together a committee to look at aids to rural cities and towns that have not yet benefited from the Student Opportunity Act. He hadn't heard of anything that was placed yet, so he was going to, he being Jeff Beckwith, the executive director of the MMA, was gonna follow up and find out where that committee sits. And that was it.
Thank you, Alicia.
Are we doing meeting updates now? or-
Yes.
Okay. I think it was last Saturday, the Saturday before I went to the Upper Green Committee. It was held in the afternoon, which was really too bad because it kept turnout down. But however, they've done an amazing job. I'm not gonna go through the list because they're gonna present it to the board with all the recommendations, different trees they want to use. The gentleman that's cleaning up the green came and spoke, and he said how it's working well, but the problem is the geese poo. That interacts with the water, and that's what's making the water bad. And until we figure out a way of deterring geese, okay, we're gonna have the problem. We also talked about, Tim Lamprey was there, we talked about the gypsum for the green, which is gonna take some time. But, they're gonna present to the board a nice package, and they did an amazingly good job as a committee.
Thanks, Mike. Any other meeting updates?
I'll be meeting with Eric Sorensen and doing a site walk before the public hearing for the driving range. We're hoping that everything is in order there and that he can continue to work.
Selectman Jesperson, when's the next meeting, public hearing?
I believe it's March 3rd, 4th.
March 4th, thank you.
I'd like to just speak on the back of Damon.
Are you gonna get into discussion about that?
The golf course, let it go.
I'll recuse myself.
Yeah, I don't think it's appropriate to talk
I don't
about
think it
that
is
here.
right now.
All right.
I
Public
want to
hearing.
talk about a meeting, there's a meeting this Thursday night of the DCC. I can't attend,
I'll be there.
I'll be there.
thank you.
Actually, though, JR, it's not about the golf course, it's about the job that Damon has to do. So it's not about the course.
Either way, I'll recuse myself if you need to have that
Recuse
discussion.
yourself for 1 sec. There's folks here tonight, and we're on TV, so I'd like to have people understand that we put Damon in a place that hasn't been that easy, because some people have said to me that Damon's awful hard on the golf course, and that maybe, he could lighten up a little. what's happened to Damon, you know, is that he's been put in a position where the information from the engineer comes in, the information from Doug comes in, the information from the planning board comes in. He has to digest all that information, and he has to put it back out, and he has to enforce it. So, it puts him in a very hard spot, and I'd just like to have the TV pick that up. He's doing it as fairly as he can, and he's going by what he is presented by Conservation Commission, the engineer from the planning board, right, Martha? And what else information is he getting?
Well, those are the two
Two
primary
main
sources.
ones, and he's working with Peter to try to put the thing on the right track, but what he's getting for information isn't easy, and he's had to administer that, so just wanted everyone to know that he's not the bad person that everyone's telling me he is. He's just trying to put the stuff out. All right, JR.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Any other meeting updates? Seeing none. Do we have warrants to sign tonight?
We do.
Excuse me, are we not gonna do citizens' concerns and the correspondences?
We're getting there.
Oh, okay, I thought we're jumping around.
Motion to sign warrants?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any old business? We've received correspondence. Has everyone had a chance to review it?
Mr. Colores,
Yep.
I'm wondering if we could reach out to him and ask him if he would,
The zoning.
to come in and sit on the zoning board of appeals, if that would interest him, because we need to.
Get somebody on that.
somebody Do that.
We have 2 letters in right now for ZBA, but we could reach out to him as well.
Who are the 2 letters from?
One is from John DiMartino, and the second is from
Mario Carnevale.
Mario Carnevale,
Oh,
sorry.
I know Mario.
How come those haven't been shared with everyone on the board?
Can I make something clear?
Yeah.
So when information and emails and letters, when they come in,
Yeah.
they're put on the agenda. They're not distributed immediately. They're put on the next agenda. That's how I've been trained.
But
So the reason for that being is that everybody can digest it by getting your packets, 3 or 4 days in advance, and discuss it at the meeting, discuss it publicly at the meeting. That's why you don't get,
I
immediately get it.
personally would like, as they come in, you
well,
put
I'm
in my
not,
box.
I'm just making
Yeah,
it
right,
clear
but
that
I-
that's the way I've been
but I'm-
trained,
but
and
we've-
if you want it differently, then I think you as a board have to discuss that at some point.
I think we should.
I just wanted to make
Okay,
it clear
right.
that it's not me.
No, I'm just saying.
That's the way I've been
Right.
trained, that's the way it's done.
All I'm saying is, my past.
understand what you're
Yeah, my
saying.
past experience was, as mail came into the selectmen, it was always given to the selectmen.
But things change, and that's the way I've been
But that was
trained.
never explained to me.
It's
I
a,
just think mail and correspondence to us should be come on a timely basis, period.
okay, any other old business? Do we have minutes to sign tonight?
Yes.
Okay,
Motion to sign minutes?
Improvements.
Yeah, sorry. Approve minutes?
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, citizens' concerns. And keep it respectful, please, as far as the proceedings tonight. There are things that legally we're not allowed to say. Yes, Mr. Thurlow, could you please come up to the microphone?
I would like to know,
Mr. Thurlow, can you please come up to the microphone?
I would prefer to sit here. I've been standing for quite a
unfortunate.
while because you asked me to leave. I'd like to know why you singled me out to leave when I heard other people clear their throats or whatever, for whatever reason I was put up, and I don't really understand why. Or do you just have it in for me? Or is it
No.
because I'm sitting in the front row?
Perhaps it was that you were closest to me, but the instructions were the same for everyone else. You were the only one that had to be asked to leave.
Right. Because I was in the front row, you think?
Any other citizens' concerns tonight?
Is that your answer?
Yeah. John Pearson?
John, can you please approach the microphone? Thank you.
John Pearson, 31 South Street, Byfield. Why hasn't he got town council? Why hasn't he got town council, and why aren't they here for him?
Town council represents the town as a whole. It does not represent individual defense for any
We
selectman.
voted him in.
That's correct, but town
The
council
town voted him
represents
in.
the town as a whole, not individual selectmen's defense. It wouldn't represent me nor any of the board.
I still say town council has it out for me for the last 18 years, and I,
How can
Sorry.
you chastise him with no defense?
He provided a defense, and the documents speak for themselves. It's all public documents. The media is going to have access to it, and any citizen in this town that wants to request it is going to have access to every little bit of it. So that should more than answer your questions. There's much more than I've presented before the board. The stack's this thick, John. There's plenty to dig into.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being respectful tonight. Any other citizens' concerns? Claire, please come up. I'll get to you, Jim.
Claire Dix, 192 High Road. I just want to concur with what Jeff said about Damon. I was at the last planning board meeting, and my impression was, and I haven't been in there from the very beginning, but I think that, to be perfectly honest, after 80 minutes, my impression was that both sides, as counsel said, because he didn't speak until after 80 minutes had passed, that both sides were sort of to be to blame, and that they finally were able to give the person in charge of, who's constructing the golf course, at least specific dates to be able to work on. So I thought it was fair to say that Damon was doing his job, and that Peter Pecos was doing his job also. They were both at a quandary, because obviously this man had done things that he shouldn't have done, and they were trying to be fair in listening to what he was saying, but also to hold him to it. And so, in fairness to Damon, I think that is correct.
Well said.
Thank you.
Jim?
Jim Moran, 104 Elm Street. My first question is, what is the status of the town hall project?
Anyone want to comment? It's not on the agenda.
It's a citizen's concern. There's other issues were brought up. I've sent 2 letters in on that in the past month. I'm just asking a reasonable question. I'm looking for a reasonable response.
Right now, there is none. We haven't seated a committee.
So there is no plan at the moment,
At the moment.
okay? The complaint against Selectman Greco, is that being investigated?
No comment.
Is the complaint against Damon Justice being investigated?
No comment.
My understanding was last fall, the Upper Green suggested to the selectmen they do some stumping work and gypsum, and it had to be, only could be done after the pricing was in. And I understand that as the advisory committee, the Upper Green people don't do that. Is anything happening there?
I'm unclear of your question. I
Was
thought
it not-
those matters were being decided and deliberated on by the Upper Green Committee.
They were passed on to the tree warden, and if I'm not mistaken, Tim Lamprey advised that we not do it.
Until spring?
Until spring.
Tree warden advises to wait till spring for those actions.
Thank you.
Right, thanks, Jim. Any other citizens' concerns tonight? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks for your cooperation tonight, everybody.